Hey, it's about the mission, guys. Nah, I think working once a day is enough.
Hello, everyone. It's great to see a lot of people coming into the meeting. Please kindly mute yourself when you join the meeting. We will unmute you when it's your time to speak. Thank you very much.
Agriculture.
Agriculture.
Good evening. Are you well?
Good evening, Resento. How are you doing today?
I am alive. Thank you very much.
I'm very excited about today, and it's great to see you. So I think we're just gonna wait about exactly 30 seconds. Then we jump straight into it. The numbers are very exciting. Fantastic. From what I'm seeing. So we just give you 30 seconds and we just jump into it.
Good stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, colleagues, good evening to everyone who's joined today's session. My name is Mokiti Benedict Tekere from One Africa. The protocol for today is very simple. We are looking at 40 minutes of discussion. Generally, we always invite an expert or a professional or a champion to be part of the discussion. So, and you will be allowed to participate in the form of question and answer in both in the chat box where you can write your question. We will also unmute you so that you can directly contribute by way of conversation. Today's panel, let me start off by saying it brings a very unique man who in my view is somebody who defines, in my view, it defines artificial intelligence. I know that a lot of people, when we speak about this thing of intelligence and this new buzzword, artificial intelligence, people think that we are speaking about something that doesn't exist in Africa. It's something that we borrow from outside. But in my view, the moment you take somebody's brain and you just simply put it and automate it and put it in a computer, that is artificial intelligence. So today you will get to learn that in Botswana there is such people who possess a great wealth of intellect and who have really contributed largely to the business sector, specifically the agriculture sector. So today we're hosting Mike Sento, who will be sharing with us his insights around agriculture and perspectively around how we can really champion this as we try to push for a citizen economic empowerment law. And more practically, I want to just talk to him about his journey and perspectively give the new generation young person in Africa advice about how to succeed, how to work with the political leadership, also definitely how to position themselves in terms of the way forward. So Resento, we are very excited. We would like to now give you the platform to introduce yourself. Then we'll guide you in terms of questions as we go ahead.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Vet Agric. Let me start by apologizing sincerely to the group because there was a bit of a miscommunication between me and Vet Agric on when the meeting was going to happen. I thought we'd agreed on a Tuesday. He had thought we'd said a Monday. So I apologize that this did not happen yesterday. It's not because of anything. It was just a miscommunication between the two of us. And having said that, many thanks for a brilliant introduction. I hope I'll be able to live to the standards that have just been put on me. But if we go back, my name is Mike Sento. I am a veterinary surgeon by profession. I trained in London back in 1996, qualified in 1996, came back to Botswana, my country, and did something that was not very favored or liked by family and colleagues and fellow citizens. I decided not to join government, and I went straight into the private sector. At the time when I joined, there probably would have been not more than 3 veterinary practices in Botswana. It was very exciting, an opportunity for me to see what one could do outside the traditional route of joining government and working for government and rising up the ladders of civil service. I would like to specifically highlight and say loud and clear that when I did this, this was not something that anybody really supported me. It was a route that was not that people were not used to. My family, my mother and father were very uncomfortable with the idea of going into the private sector. So was the rest of my close family members. My colleagues who were either had been my classmates or been a year or back ahead of me were not particularly excited by the thought of me doing this, but all the same, I went in and dived in and did it anyway. It's been a very interesting 3. During the time I've seen, I hope I'm still there.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, fantastic. Sorry. Yeah, so it's been an exciting 23 years, developing professionally, starting, as an employee, and since 2006 being an employer, graduating to become an employer. The exciting bit has been the fact that those that doubted whether you can survive in the private sector, that it is doable. It has not been easy, but it's been an exciting journey. During the time, we've moved from 3 practices and we've gone to probably 12 clinics in the whole of the country now, and the numbers are increasing. And it's been fun. It's been fun sitting down, engaging people in the public service, engaging clients, private clients, and trying to grow the business. People in the science professionals like myself are not always brilliant entrepreneurs. We don't have the business acumen. Our training is such that a few of us may be bright enough to venture in that direction, but most of us traditionally like to stick to doing the basics, and we're always terrified of doing anything new. But times are changing. Life is demanding that you change, whether you like it or not. If you don't, you perish. Break down, your business falls apart. So it's really been exciting the last few years, and I'm at a stage where I've been part of the driving Vet Agric, our company, in the last more than 10 years now. It's not easy, but it's growing. It's sitting there. It's competing with anybody that dares to challenge it. As a competitor, it's doing its best to provide the service as best as it can to its clients and keep everybody happy. Yes. So that's, in a brief, has been my journey thus far.
So thank you very much, Resento. You know, the reason why I actually wanted you to introduce yourself, because, you know, for a lot of young people or a lot of Botswana, getting into entrepreneurship is always a last option, okay? It's never been a case where somebody actually walks out of a university and goes and opens up a business, okay? I speak from a perspective where, you know, I have personally never had to experience this thing of walking out of a university and actually go get a job. I had to start a business. So I relate very well with what you are saying. I hope for those that listen to this story get to understand that for him, entrepreneurship was not a forced or was not a last option. But, you know, there's something that is more of interest that I want to ask you, you know, Resento Gyokore. Botswana has succeeded and failed over the years. Perspectively, we've built a big machine called Botswana, or DBS, as you call it, which is the flagship of Botswana. When you speak about the story of Botswana, this particular company comes across. You cannot avoid it. So, but I've always wondered why a country with so much vast land, with so much fiscal strength, has not been able to create a replica of Botswana in the agriculture sector. So you can maybe give us what have we done right or wrong, and why we failed, if we have failed. And if we were to go forward, how do we bring agriculture as the next frontier outside the beef and the cattle, because I think we need to eat. I mean, just to give you the numbers and those joining, I was shocked to find out last week when we said to the Vice Chancellor of Buen, which is the Botswana University of Natural Resources, of Agriculture, and he says 50% of the vegetables that are consumed in Botswana come from outside. 80% of the fruits, either it's an orange or it's an apple, that are being consumed in all the shops in Botswana come right next door from South Africa. And the only difference is that South Africa and Botswana are separated by the border. But the people are planting Kako Limpopo, but we just next to that, we're not able to do that. So I want you to give us perspective there, Jorge. What have we failed in doing, and what have we done well that we can leverage?
Yeah. Penny, that's a very good, tough question that you just asked. My attempt in answering that would be, let's start here. Agriculture, unfortunately, to most Africans, has always been done subsistently. This is culturally. Everybody has just always been able to produce for themselves and their family, and nothing further than that.
Right.
So to then suddenly grow from you knowing that you just need a 2 hectares field to just grow enough for your family, to suddenly having to produce for a nation and nations, is a very, very difficult thing for most Africans to cross over to do. The second thing, for Botswana environment, once we started strong with beef, we got lucky, but unfortunate for agriculture, we got lucky with the diamonds. TBS discovered diamonds in Botswana, and we started mining in the late 70s. And diamonds are highly profitable. It is an extremely profitable product. Like, you're talking 90% profitability here. It's insane. You spend 4 million to easily generate 6 billion. So profitability of that is very, very high. Whereas with agriculture, the margins hardly ever get too rich to that, unless you add value, which is something that we'll probably talk about at a later stage. But unfortunately, the discovery of diamonds in a country that was largely doing subsistence farming meant a fair amount of money, and everybody then ran with the money without even trying to understand where this money was coming from. It was there, it had to be spent, so everybody got into a spending spree, whether it was government, but unfortunately that trickled down to the citizens. So we all got comfortable where you were guaranteed your parents would have a job, you know, everybody would have it relatively easy. So agriculture then slowly fell off to the extent where now it's only probably going to start slowly creeping up purely because people don't have a choice, because everything else looks flooded, and it now looks like it might be the only option at this point in time. The disadvantage with that is it then means most people that go into it with very little knowledge, very little background, you know, information, knowledge that's been passed through generations. So most of us, unfortunately, are going to dive into it purely because we see it as the only alternative that is left. So really, to try and zoom into answering the question, we could not. Agriculture is demanding. It's not very profitable. You are able to grow whatever you're able to grow relatively cheaply, but what you get, because most of the time tends to be raw material, what you get out of that is not huge margins that will allow us to boom relatively quickly and get to the stage where we could challenge, you know, other industries such as mining, such as tourism, you know, and currently now, you know, technology, ICT. So we have an opportunity there, but it is not going to be the easiest thing to jump into. It's something that people are going to have to navigate around to get to make it big in agriculture.
So tell me something. I mean, we're going to talk about numbers. I know from a policy perspective, there's a big push for increasing productivity of GDP, okay? Now, when anybody talks about GDP and productivity of an economy, we know that you can only increase that by either between 2% as a minimum and maximum up to 18%. You can't go beyond that. So for a country like Botswana that's got a single commodity like diamonds, and where we're in a situation now where nobody's actually going to buy the diamonds, and again, nobody's going to come in and see the beautiful delta we have, which is tourism, and we've got 90% of our food coming from South Africa, and all the South Africans seems to have a problem with COVID. How do you then say that a country in comparison like Bahrain, which is in the middle of Norway, in the Middle East, which is a desert, also another country, so very small, like Rwanda, who's very small, but the largest contributor to GDP, or when they speak of economy productivity, it's agriculture. But they don't have the advantage of the money that you speak about that comes from the diamonds. They also don't have the advantage of the land. So let's speak in terms of policy to say, how do we then create a smart link to influence decision around this conversation?
You know, agriculture is an opportunity for us. And there's a big catch to this. Our catch is, since 1977, you know, we've been living on something that is highly profitable. It has gotten us to really take it easy, enjoy ourselves to the level where it is very difficult to have a mindset change to try and get to move away from something that generates so much money so relatively easily, to go to agriculture and get it up. I'm worried that no matter what we try and do, the current crop of leadership, and by leadership, I'm not necessarily just restricting myself to political here. I'm talking even administratively, even in the business world. We have a nation that has gotten so dependent on diamonds that to see opportunities elsewhere is extremely difficult. It really mindset to a thing. Everybody thinks, you know, there's an opportunity, you can go in, you know, we're importing everything. Come on, guys, let's go and produce. But the mindset, our lifestyle, the way we've always seen things, we look down upon agriculture is for the less educated, for the lowest of the rank. I can't go in there, I can't put on my fancy, you know, suit and and go into agriculture. So mindset warona, I'm worried for it as much as statistics and and opportunities say agriculture could help us out. I'm not sure if we have the right people as a nation to get us to see that as an opportunity. When you contrast us with South Africa, you must always know the South Africans had the advantage of a race of people that decided to put the effort. They had nothing but agriculture. Okay? The Afrikaners had nothing but agriculture. That's all. The word, we call them maburu. The word boer means farmer. Traditionally, they built their whole thing around farming. If you sit back and say, when did Boyan van Riebeeck settle down in South Africa? We're talking the 1600s.
Right.
And then they've started doing that. So you're not talking generation and generation and generation of people that believe you can be born in the remotest area of South Africa, farm big time, produce large amounts of money, create a lot of huge wealth, and you see a generation after generation, your parents doing it, and you take it to the next level. We don't have that. All we have is a few subsistence farmers that, if you had 100 cattle, you'd be deemed extremely wealthy. These days, if you're 400, you're filthy rich. But we've not really seen generations of our fathers passing this on generation by generation, especially the knowledge behind farming. So I'm worried for it. This is an opportunity, but I'm also worried for it. Not necessarily have and people to be able to go into it, to exploit it, to get it where it is. We also have the disadvantage as small population. Sometimes when we say we are importing 50% or 90% of the food, you must just remember that's 90% of the food to 2 million people.
Right.
So that by South African standard, the food that is coming to us, it's negligible. We see the 90%. They probably see 2% of the export going to Botswana because of a small market. So the figure that I import the must go a little bit into perspective to know we're not really a big population that is importing as much as we think the 90% means.
All right. I would like at this juncture to give Mike some bit of time to reflect on what the colleagues that have joined are going to reflect and say on what he said. Colleagues, as I've mentioned, we've got a chat box where you can type in your question. I would like at this juncture to open up conversation for discussion. This has been timed for exactly 10 minutes and it will go back to Vet Sento. So can we just know, what are your thoughts around this discussion, perspectively, how do we influence the new economy in terms of agriculture? Do we have the right resources? Are we capable? Are we able to play in this space? And what needs to be done differently? From a policy, from an entrepreneur perspective, from a finance perspective, definitely from an intelligence perspective, as we have just received some insights from Mike. So colleagues, I've opened up for discussion. It's generally important to manage time. Please go ahead if you would like to speak. Just unmute yourself and go ahead. Okay, I've got a colleague from Namibia. I'm just going to unmute her. Please go ahead, Tekla.
Okay, thank you so much for this golden opportunity where we are discussing about agriculture way forward. How can it play a bigger role in this time of COVID-19 and also after? Because this is a long-term plan that we want to prepare for our countries. To me, on your point of view, as we see mining industry, it's decline due to the fact that tourists who are supposed to come in our country to see minerals in order our country to boost have declined. The next step is to look into agriculture, because agriculture, it will lead our country to be self-sufficient on food security. And if we are not looking into agriculture, as yesterday my leader, you point out that 90% of our products are import. That's why we have to do something. And this something needs to be implemented with stakeholders in our countries that work together with agriculture, so that we can able to step forward in action. For example, let me say to Namibia, after we discuss what we are discussing right now, is now I have to share it with stakeholders in agriculture to look into this incredible idea, so that we can support agriculture from political, governmental, and parastatal sector of this idea, so that we can able to implement it in our countries, which will bring a good impact to our farmer productivity, ministry, and stakeholder. That's what I have. And also allow me to thank Mrs. Memory Francina from Namibia, who joined us here, although some honorable, they are dealing with Zoom. Thank you so much. Yes.
Okay, thank you very much, colleagues. This discussion is generally open continentally. I did warn the panelists, the remark about that. I think we also have other colleagues who would like to speak. Please go ahead. Please just raise your hand or unmute, ask us to unmute you. Then we can do that. You just need to press a button that raises your hand. And then okay, there we go. We've got Matseka. Please go ahead.
Thank you very much, Chair. Sento, don't you think our downfall is because, I mean, the government wants to appease the electoral, the voters in terms of your small, subsistence farmers, rather than maybe trying to empower the large-scale commercial farmers to actually now produce the food that we need? We tend to want to now concentrate on maybe providing the assistance to these small-scale subsistence farmers, such that they only generate food for consumption, and we don't actually now target areas where we've got large dams to actually now come up with very big farms, which we can now use to produce the food that could feed the whole country.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Ramatsika. I'm a capitalist stroke libertarian. I'm never excited to see government messing around or putting too much of their hands in the business world. The minute we have, and unfortunately, Botswana, especially from the revenues from diamonds, government has been playing a relatively heavy-handed in all the industries in Botswana. Now, the minute you have government money and you have relatively big farmers or big companies and, that are able to do what we want to do by achieving, if it's food production, prop up company A, B, C, D, because they're big enough, they will be able to do the production. The biggest problem with it is it then tends to shrink everybody else and create monopolies. I'm uncomfortable with that. Agriculture is is one of the few industries where anybody can play a role. More Botswana, we even believe anybody is called a farmer. You just need to look at our funeral programs, if you've never worked, you'll be called Mulimui, even if you've never actually farmed. So my strongest view, Ramatseka, is I'm happy for government to help everybody and not necessarily concentrate on identifying the few that may be strong to get our production to where it is. My feeling is those that are big and strong should be able to do that without government intervention anyway. So I would rather government doesn't prop them up even further. Government ought to just create an environment conducive for industries to grow, for businesses to grow, to compete, for production to happen. To have government playing a role, a heavy-handed role in the industry, things don't always work out right, really.
So how do we then create that approach where we have a strong private sector that can initiate, say, an agriculture revolution that is structured, that comes with the right resources, that comes with the capabilities, that comes with the right funding, outside a government influenced model like what we're trying to see now in Botswana? It's coming in the form of, look, we are going to give you a citizen economic empowerment law, and within this law we expect you to then craft how we can better make a certain sector productive. So I think your perspective is this needs to be a bottom-up approach where private sector drives the agenda and government plays the enabler role, right? So how do we do that? I mean, based on your own experience of being there for so many years, what is the wisdom words of for private sector to structure itself, to organize itself, such that it can have a good voice to lobby for a new agenda?
I'll be very honest with you, Benedict. Our environment in Botswana is not the easiest to change, to influence in the direction that, I wish, I'll put up suggestions. We've had a very long period of time, decades, literally decades. If you're sitting down calculating from the late 70s, we're not talking 10 years, 15 years, we're talking decades here, where government has been the main driver of the economy. The private sector in Botswana is literally non-existent. We like to play big. We're just sitting there to try and get crumbles from government. And when you have a setup like everybody wants government to be the one funding everything. Government must set up SIDA, must set up NDB, must set up each and every little thing to try and help people to get to where they are. And entrepreneurs, even smart guys that really could start looking for financing and models outside, are so blinded that we all of us go back and say, no, but how can government help us? I wish Botswana government sounds horrible. I wish Botswana government could be poor just briefly to allow us to grow. I'm almost of those that if we did things as a private sector, if we drove most of our own programs as a private sector, we might just get things right. Just as a not very accurate example, when I had an opportunity of buying the business from my former employer back in 2006, the natural thing for me was to go to all the government financial institutions to get money, because that's what 99% of Botswana will do. We're either going to go to SIDA, we're going to go to NDB, you're going to go to something where it's soft loan, cheap money, government money I can get away with matter if I don't pay it back. And I struggled to get that into my head to go that route. I actually literally went for the most expensive way of financing taking over a business. I refused to go in the direction of our normal SIDAs and the NDBs or anything that would appear soft. And I took the longer, hard, painful route of going to banks, and putting out a proposal and getting it that way, because it then just put me in a situation where I cannot get away with not paying back the money. So Nahela, the long and short of it is, I wish we could, as a private sector, we could gradually start looking away from it and look from ourselves how we can generate money and influence decisions and make up and do deals outside government that allows a Vet Agric company to come and see what it can do for Vet Agric, as opposed to sit down, day in, day out, trying to find what I can do with this government, because that's about the only body that's got money. So I really now wish we could have a mind change, move away from that, and stop thinking for a government. Our government will always be the financier or the enabler financially of our businesses. We need to grow up. We need to grow up as a private sector and learn to do business within ourselves. And it's difficult because 99% of the money is held by government. It is difficult, but the only way to those that have had the opportunity to win something from government, you now need to trickle that into the private sector proper, and support other businesses and encourage and grow other people, outside government so that they can then stand on their own. But unfortunately, now we always just revert back to the default government.
Right.
Government assistance.
So thank you for that. I've got 5 minutes to conclude this session. Resento talks about staying away from government. I have experienced that idea that every single entrepreneur in the continent, not Botswana only, when they develop a business, they develop for government. So there you go, guys. You've had it. Look for other instruments of financing your business. Government may actually derail you outside that. So let me just take on some comments here. We've got a colleague joining from Uganda who's just letting us know that they're joining here. Also, a colleague also just put it in the chat that, we need to strongly ensure that the private sector drives all the new initiatives as proposed. Issues like land, issues like proposing a new fund, obviously all outside the government. So because I've got 3 minutes specifically, I'm gonna just ask the panelist to just give us his last words in 3 minutes exactly. And just mention that if I do get cut along the way, this session has been recorded and it will be put on our YouTube channel called Mwana Africa. You will find it there so that you can reflect and then you can use it for references for consultations with others. So Resento, back to you. Say we've got 3 minutes to conclude exactly. Resento, are you still there with us?
Hello, are we there?
Yeah, you can go ahead. You've got 2 minutes exactly.
Is this me now? So that
Yes.
I didn't hear you earlier.
Yes, you can go ahead.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. For me, my way forward as young people that want to go into business, guys, as much as government is a good source of money, let's try and move away from that. There's a second thing that we have failed to do badly as Africans. We hate partnerships. The reason why Botswana is where it is because of a partnership called the Botswana, DBS and Botswana government. Partnerships are not necessarily the worst things to happen in the world, okay? We like to go on our own and struggle on our own and make mistakes on our own. We need to learn to form liaisons with other people. Do not hesitate to go into partnerships. If things go wrong, there are always ways of resolving things. So now encourage, we must really always look into issues of partnerships. So Tswana, I'm sorry to bring up Tswana idioms here, but it is difficult. No man is an island. We need to consider working together, not only by collaboration, but even at the business and go into partnerships with other people. We had a beautiful example at Botswana working out right for us. And it's a 50-50 partnership. Do not hesitate to form partnerships with other people. Other people bring in ideas, they bring in money. Do not hesitate to go that route. So it's something that I would really strongly encourage. Young Botswana, you guys have the biggest advantage of not being traditional, like grade 8%. You guys see the world as one. There's a global village for you guys. Do not hesitate to go and set up things elsewhere. Do not be restricted by the borders within a country. Believe you me, I strongly believe for our successful Botswana entrepreneurs are the ones that are going to start in other countries and come back to this country. I strongly believe that. For those that are here, that are starting here, just know that you're going to be hitting your head